What's up everyone, John Rettinger from Techno Buffalo here with a smartphone smackdown. In one corner we have the contender, Verizon's newest king of the hill, the Droid X. On the other we have AT&T and Apple's ruler, the iPhone 4. So we're going to put these two in a 10-round smackdown and see who comes out on top. So there are obviously a ton of rounds and things we can cover about these, but I picked the 10 most pertinent rounds that I think summarize the phones the best. So we are going to cover display, processor, storage, text entry, browser, still camera, video camera, speed, operating system, and a few other intangibles. So let's go ahead and jump right into the display. You can clearly see a difference here. The iPhone has a 3.5-inch capacitive screen with a resolution of 960 by 640, something Apple is calling Retina display, you may have heard. On the other, we have the Droid X with a very large 4.3-inch screen, capacitive as well, the resolution of 854 by 480. So even though you have a larger screen, and with the larger screen you are probably going to get less eye strain, the display has to go to the iPhone. And you're going to ask, why am I prioritizing this in that way? Well, from a pixel standpoint, we're going to get 614,000 pixels on the iPhone, and we're going to get 409,020 on the Droid X. So as I mentioned, certainly you'll get less eye strain on a larger screen, but more pixel density means crisper graphics, sharper text, more screen real estate, which is going to mean less scrolling when you're looking at text and browsing. So from a display standpoint, despite the larger screen, this edge has to go to Apple's iPhone 4. So one round for Apple. Next, let's talk about processor. What's sort of driving these two things? Well, there's the A4 system on a chip. That same thing that's powering the iPad, put in the iPhone 4, clocked at about 1 gigahertz. On the other hand, really Motorola shocked many people when they shunned Qualcomm's 1 gigahertz Snapdragon chip, and instead went to TI's OMAP processor, which is the same sort of family of chips found in a lot of phones, including the original Droid, but they ramped up the clock speed to 1 gigahertz. And ordinarily I was a bit worried that maybe it was just an overclocked, slower chip. But as you'll see, this thing is a screamer, very fast, really capable, and very well-rounded. So from a processor standpoint, this one's got to be a draw. 1 gigahertz to 1 gigahertz sometimes doesn't equal the same speed, but as you'll see, these are both very capable processors that do things a bit differently, but do them both very, very well. So we're going to call processor a draw. So next, let's move on to storage and value. Well, the iPhone 4 is going to come in two capacities, either 16 or 32 for $199 or $299 respectively, and that is internal storage. It's on a sort of flash drive inside, so you can't remove it. You're going to be stuck with the storage size that you get. The Droid X you can actually get in storage size from 24 gigs all the way up to 40. Your $199 entry price point will be available July 15th, by the way. It's going to give you 8 gigabytes of internal memory and 16 on a micro SD card. It's going to come standard, already installed on the phone. So out of the box, you're getting 24 gigs. You can also replace those, swap them out. You can go all the way up to 40 if you take out your 16 gig card and put in a 32. So if you're a photographer, you need to be able to remove storage and take things elsewhere. You have the option to remove the cards, as I mentioned, and also you can go all the way up to 40 gigs of storage. And you can tailor the phone's storage size for what's best for you. So from a storage standpoint and a value in that aspect, the Droid X is clearly the winner here. So next, let's talk about keyboard. Both of these lack physical QWERTY keyboards, so how you input text is going to be very important. I've gone on the record as saying I'm an iPhone user, and I found that the iPhone keyboards has been very hard to beat, but let's see how the Droid X stacks up to it. So I'm going to go ahead and open up a new Notes application here on the iPhone, and I'm going to go ahead and input some text and see how it works. So we'll go ahead and get this ready. So you can input text in two ways. You've got either a portrait or landscape keyboard. We'll go ahead and try the portrait here. And both feature a very nice and really well done autocorrect. So I'll go ahead and type just a simple text message. Winnie the Pooh sounds gross because it does, and I was able to type that very quickly and easily. We'll go ahead and hop on over to landscape and try the same thing. So messed that one up a little bit. And as I mentioned, I'm a big fan of the keyboard on the iPhone. Let's take a look at the keyboard here on the Droid X. And I should mention that the Droid X is not running a standard build of Android 2.1. It's actually running a brand new version of Motorola's Moto Blur, which they've made much less obtrusive from the original Moto Blur, and really done a very nice job sort of having it run in the background and just augment some of the things that you use regularly. So we'll go into text messages here. Switch back and we'll open up new text message and I'll go ahead and start typing. And you can see the keyboard immediately is going to look different than what you see on normal Android devices or even on Sense UI devices. So I'll try and type here. So Winnie the Pooh sold gross. We'll go ahead and push it into landscape and try this one more time. So I made a few errors there, but you know, it's going to happen when you're trying to type as quickly as possible. So errors on each. So if I'm just going to compare keyboard to keyboard here, I got to say the keyboard on the Droid X really impressed me. I think that Motorola's keyboard implementation here is actually better than HTC's they've used with Sense, and I think it's better than what Google puts on a standard Android build. It's nice, it's easy to use, it's well laid out. And I was surprisingly a very quick fan of the Droid X keyboard. However, entering text just from keyboard to keyboard, if we're going a keyboard to keyboard comparison here, it would probably be a very close round. I may side with the Droid X because the screen, the keys are a little bit easier to type on. But that's not the only way to input text. You've got a fantastic text option here. So let me go ahead and try this and see what it looks like. So we'll go ahead and go to the end and tap right there. And I'm going to go ahead and hit this microphone. And I'm going to talk into it and see how it translates into text. This is a test of the keyboard on the Droid. This is a test of the keyboard on the Droid, and it did it perfectly, and I found that it does it very perfectly. So this is a great way if you're in the car, you don't want to type out a long message. This really does a very nice job of doing it. So if we're comparing text entry and keyboards, this clearly has to go to the Droid X, which is saying a lot, because I think the keyboard on the iPhone is fantastic. But the ways that you can input text and things that you can do with the Droid X really beat out the iPhone here. So we will go ahead and chalk this round up to the Droid X. Alright, so next let's go ahead and move on to browser and how each browser works and how it functions and sort of the features that you're going to get with each. And we'll do a browser speed test coming up, so don't worry if that's what you're looking for. Let's go ahead and launch the browsers. We'll go ahead and launch it here on the Droid X. Jumped on into landscape, and we'll do the same thing here. And we'll go ahead and jump to my YouTube channel. Seems like a good enough site. So while that is loading, let's look at the browser here on the iPhone. It's something that probably most of you are familiar with, or at least have seen somehow in passing. Very smooth browsing. It's very smooth scrolling. You can pinch and zoom. Oops, you get multi-touch to pinch and zoom. And the text now, as far as zoomed out as I can go, is still legible. You can still, if I zoomed in a little bit, you can still read the text that's on there. And you still read it actually relatively clearly. No flash here on either device, actually. The iPhone certainly doesn't support flash. It supports HTML5 and a few other sort of video formats. You can double tap to zoom, and things just work well on the browser. If you look at the browser on the Droid X, it works very well as well. However, the text on sort of the standard zoom you can't read. A little bit lower resolution, so if I zoom in there, you can see the text is almost illegible. It's not nearly as clear and easy to read as it is here on the iPhone. You can see you can read the text on the iPhone. You can't read it here on the Droid X. You do get multi-touch, so you can certainly pinch to zoom and it works well. It's not as fluid, I don't think, as what you get on the iPhone, but it's very, very usable. Again, no flash support yet for the Droid X. That is saying that it's going to be coming sometime in late of 2010, so you get Flash 10.1 support. But without Flash, and if we're comparing sort of browsers to browsers, I think the iPhone just offers a smoother experience. Scrolling is a bit more fluid. It's a little bit jerky on the Motorola Droid X. Although the Droid X is a very capable browser, I think browsing is one thing that the iPhone really does well and excels at. So this round, I think, definitely has to go back into Apple's camp and going to the iPhone. So next, let's go ahead and talk about speed and how fast both of these are. And both of these devices, we'll mention in a little bit, support multitasking. So I want to go ahead and close all running programs in the background. So you've got sort of a fair test. So let's go ahead and do that first. On the Droid X, I want to do this on camera so you know there's no funny business going on. So go ahead and open up this task killer, and I will kill all selected apps. And I'm going to go back home. I'm going to do the same thing here on the iPhone. I'm going to close everything that was running in the background. So that everything is now closed. Okay, so now we're dealing with sort of apples to, let's say, the Droid's oranges. Let's go ahead and launch the browser. So this is going to be a speed test. Now we're connected over the same Wi-Fi network. So we'll go ahead and load up the YouTube page on each, and we'll do a simple refresh test. And this is going to test pages that you visit on a regular basis, so pages that have already been loaded on here, to see really how quickly or how slowly both of these load. So you can see that they're both on here. So I'm going to go ahead and do the simple refresh test, and we'll see which one comes out on top. Same Wi-Fi network. Although I will say it looks like I'm getting full Wi-Fi reception here. It looks like I'm only getting half of the Wi-Fi reception on the Droid X, something to keep in mind. We'll go ahead and hit go on each. Hit go there, and we're off. And let's see who comes out on top. It looks like the iPhone's got a bit of an early edge, but the Droid X finished that noticeably faster than the iPhone 4 did, very quickly. And that's despite what appears to be a degraded Wi-Fi signal stream. So maybe that was an anomaly, maybe not. Let's go ahead and try loading technobuffalo.com on each and see if we have a winner. So we got TechnoBuffalo ready to go there, and we'll do the same thing here. Okay, and we will see which one comes out on top. And again, TechnoBuffalo has been loaded on each of these as well. So we clearly saw an edge with the Droid X. And actually, in all of my iPhone versus Droid phones, we've seen the Android phones be much quicker in the browsing standpoint. And it looks like that is no exception here, as the Droid X once again handily beats the iPhone 4 in a browser speed test. Very clearly, the browser and perhaps the processor network sort of coming together from a browsing standpoint creates a little bit quicker experience, about 1.5 to 2 seconds faster. I'm going to go ahead and close both of these, and both of these now are just going to be running the browser in the background. And we'll try some other sort of non-scientific speed tests, and we'll launch applications that are similar and see if we have any sort of difference. Let's go ahead and open up settings. So again, non-scientific, operating systems handle settings opening in very different ways. But just to see if we can check for speed, let's go ahead and give it a very simple whirl. So open up settings on each. So a little bit faster on the Droid. Let's try opening up, let's say, camera. And you can get a sneak peek here too at what the new modal blur looks like. And I'll be doing a full overview as well on sort of how the new modal blur works. Let's go ahead and open up about the camera functions on each. This does have a dedicated camera button, by the way, on the right-hand side, as I mentioned in my unboxing. So we'll go camera to camera and see which one opens up quicker here as well. That's oftentimes an application that we get a decent amount of lag with. It didn't quite, well, it did open up at the same time. It was a little bit quicker on the iPhone. I actually thought that I didn't even hit it on the Droid, but it just took a second to load. So speed to speed, application-wise, kind of close. But that closeness is definitely outweighed by the Droid X's speed when it comes to web browsing. Certainly it's yet to be seen how speed is going to be affected once Flash 10.1 is on here. However, right now, as the phones are, clearly from a speed standpoint, the Droid X beats the iPhone. Again, that's something that we've seen with all of the head-to-head comparisons I've done, including the Incredible and the Evo 4G. The Droid X appears to not be any different. Alright, so now let's talk about still camera. And I broke up still and video because they do very different things, and both these are very capable devices. I thought they should be handled a little bit differently. So from a camera standpoint, we are looking at a 5 megapixel sensor on the iPhone. It's got 4.3 image capture. It does have an LED flash. And on the front, it does have a VGA resolution front-facing camera. The still camera on the Droid X has an 8 megapixel sensor, takes images at 16:9, dual LED flash, and features image stabilization. So I'm going to go ahead and put up some pictures right now, and you can sort of see the difference between what they look like. And I'll do some in low light and highlight with the flash on each, so you guys can check them out. Okay, so from a picture-to-picture standpoint, you'll notice that there's not much of a difference here. The 3 megapixel difference between the two phones doesn't necessarily transfer to better image quality. So the quality of the images themselves, I think, are very, very similar. However, what's going to give this edge to the iPhone is the addition of that front-facing camera. And we're not talking about video chat here at all, just if you want to take a self-portrait, for example, or you ever want to hold the camera out. It's very nice to have that secondary option, even if it is adjusted at VGA resolution. But if you want to send a picture of something that you want to see and you want to message it out, it really is a great option. So from a still standpoint, I have to give that edge to the iPhone just because that front-facing camera. If that wasn't here, or if the Droid X had a front-facing camera, much like the Evo 4G, would have been a very different story. So now let's go ahead and jump over to video, because there's a bit of a difference here with video. So the iPhone shoots 720p video. It's got 2 microphones. The Droid X shoots 720p video and it has 3 microphones. So I'm going to go ahead and put in some sample video here and you guys can sort of check out the quality. Alright, so these are being recorded exactly at the same time, testing out the video and audio fidelity. I'm certainly now in some highlight situation, just walking down the street. Alright, so now we are testing video in low light situations. Alright, so these are being recorded exactly at the same time, testing out the video and audio fidelity. I'm certainly now in some highlight situation, just walking down the street. So now we are testing video in low light situations. So looking at the quality of the video here, I was very surprised. I actually expected the Droid X quality to be a bit better, but surprisingly it wasn't as good as the iPhone 4's video quality. And despite its extra microphone, I thought the audio fidelity wasn't as good either. So you can see this, it seems relatively obvious when they're up to each other next. From a video standpoint, you're going to get a little bit better from the iPhone 4. And again, that front-facing camera sort of comes into play because you can record video from the front as well. So even if the quality was more on parity, being able to have that front-facing camera for video, again, gives it an edge. And sort of video and still are two very separate categories, and I use my phones for each. And that was sort of the reason behind breaking them apart. So next, let's talk about operating system. This is going to be a really hot button issue. I know it gets a lot of sort of the fans and fanboys and sort of people on edge. It's going to come down to personal preference here, whichever one you like. The iPhone sort of offers a more closed atmosphere. If you can live inside of Apple's walled garden of iTunes and sort of how they want you to view media on here, the iPhone's a very nice experience. You get multitasking. You have to do a lot of page scrolling to view your applications. You can't really dig much deeper. They don't really have dedicated file manager, and there really isn't any widget support. If you look over at the operating system on the Droid X, it's running Android 2.1 with Moto Blur, and in the past I think Moto Blur has been a hindrance on phones. We saw with the backflip and a few other Moto Blur devices. However, they have completely updated it to make it a really nice experience. And from sort of that operating system standpoint, you can do a lot. If you like sort of the standard icon array, you can have a standard icon array and view it like that. If you want widgets, you can have widget support. So here I've got some weather and some calendar. I've got different icons. You can see down there, it helps me scroll between pages. And the ability to also have the sort of moving wallpapers or live wallpapers really is a sort of a nice, fun thing to have on your phone. So the more I use Android, the bigger fan I become of it. And sort of from an operating system standpoint, I think what we're getting on the iPhone is nice. We've seen evolutionary upgrades from the first edition, and it's certainly a capable operating system, but it is getting a bit stale. And Android seems to always be reinventing itself, and with these different skins, so between Moto Blur, Sense UI, and the standard Android, you get sort of 3 different experiences, which is nice because you get to pick which one is best for you. So you may like what Motorola has done here at the Moto Blur and say, you know what, the Droid X is going to be great for me. You may love HTC Sense. You might say, you know what, another device that's running HTC is going to be fantastic for me. Or I like the stock Android build. I want something that's got pure, unadulterated Android 2.1 or 2.2 on it. The choice goes with the consumer. And I think from that standpoint, the operating system on Android is going to have to get the edge here. And this is the first time I've actually given the operating system edge to an Android device. But the more I use it, the more that I've seen how Motorola's implemented modal blur here, the bigger fan of it I become. So that round is going to go to the Droid X. So let's talk about sort of other intangible and other features here. So from the Droid X standpoint, you will be getting Flash towards the end of the year, Flash 10.1. It's got multitasking and does have HDMI out. On the iPhone standpoint, you do have video chat, which is awesome. Actually, before I filmed this, I was having a FaceTime chat with a friend in London. The quality was great. So you actually pretty much get now free coast to coast or country to country calling if both of you have iPhone 4s. Multitasking and the new 3-axis accelerometer or gyroscope. So from the intangible standpoint, so the extra features that you get, and again, that's where that front-facing camera really comes into play, the iPhone is going to get this round. So for those of you that have been keeping track at home, the display went to the iPhone, processor was a tie, storage went to the Droid X, text entry went to the Droid X for its awesome keyboard and the ability to sort of speak text to it. Browser went to the iPhone, though we may have to reevaluate that once Flash comes to it. Still camera went to the iPhone, video camera went to the iPhone, both of which because of the presence and the usefulness of the VGA camera on the front. Operating system went to the Droid X, the other intangibles went to the iPhone, and speed went to the Droid X, giving us a 10-round total of iPhone 4 5, Droid X 4, and a tie at 1. If you guys will go back and sort of watch a video comparison I did of the Evo 4G, you'll notice that the really intangibles here were the front-facing camera and the 4th generation technology gave the Evo 4G an edge. Taking those out of the equation, you still have a very, very capable phone, 4.3-inch display, very fast, and does a lot of great things. But in this 10-round test, the iPhone barely came out on top. And I do say barely. If you're not going to use that front-facing camera, it would have been a much sort of different outcome. However, sort of putting everything together in a total package, the iPhone 4 is the winner, but not by much. I'm a huge fan of the Droid X. It's a great phone. Not only is it a great phone, it's a great value as well on a fantastic network. So, can't go wrong with either, but in head-to-head, there has to be a winner, and the winner here is the iPhone 4. So do you agree or disagree? I can already see the comments going crazy, but I am very curious to what you have to say. For all your tech news, be sure to check out technobuffalo.com, where you can interact with users in our built-in social network, or even make your own domain and create your own website with full WordPress content management. technobuffalo.com/whatever username wants to be, and you can even put in your own ad code and make a couple bucks from it. So anyway, guys, for exclusive content, check me out at Twitter, twitter.com/John4Lakers. I am John Rettinger, and I will see you in the next video.